Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ian McNaughton. This is Ian Review Sports. Today I'm going to be talking about the British Grand Prix that happened last Sunday. I'm doing this on Saturday. Obviously, the big event of the British Grand Prix last week was the Lewis Hamilton-Max Verstappen crash. I'm going to get into that a little bit. I'm going to be talking about some other events throughout the race that happened. And I still haven't contemplated yet on what my schedule will be, if I'm going to do an actual Hungarian Grand Prix preview or if I'll talk a little. I'll probably do one next week. It's just things are a bit busy right now with covering hockey, covering Olympics. So if you haven't already, check it out, take a look. Go look at my last video reviewing rugby from the past week. We're going to have a Rugby Sevens preview blog out between now and Sunday night my time. For the Rugby Sevens tournament at the Olympics, so go check out that. Let's talk about the British Grand Prix. So it happened last Sunday, July 18th at Silverstone. It was a great race from start to finish, and then everything kind of spiraled a little bit out of control after the end, with some of the online comments, kind of people targeting one another. I'll talk about that later on, but on lap one of the British Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen are battling through the whole first lap until they collide heading into Copse Corner. So going down the old pit lane or start-finish straight, they go into Copse Corner. Basically, the two collide. Hamilton and Max connect with one another. It sends Max flying off into the wall, loses his tire. Max is done, retired immediately. Apparently, the impact was 51 Gs when he crashed into the wall. It's a good thing that Max is all right. I'm happy to hear that Max is okay. That's the most important thing out of all of this, is that Max Verstappen is okay and he's feeling well. I know when we see incidences like this, we immediately go and put blame on somebody, or we point the finger at somebody instead of actually trying to dissect it or really, do some research or insight or look at it cautiously. I know we like to point the finger on this sort of thing. I've looked at the crash, 20 times. I have 3 pages worth of notes on the whole crash and stuff. So I'm going to talk about the who, what, where, the whole thing. And I'll just say this. Personally, I believe it's a racing incident. That after watching the video many times, slowing it down, watching it at 0.25 speed, I believe it's a racing incident. I'm not upset with the penalty with Lewis. I think that's totally fair. But overall, I think it's a racing incident. But let me go into the who, what, where, why. So who was involved? So Max Verstappen was involved. He's leading the Drivers' Championship heading into last Sunday's race. And he drives for Red Bull, who's also leading the Constructors' Championship. Lewis Hamilton is involved. He's second place in a Drivers' Championship. He drives for Mercedes, who's second in a Constructors' Championship. Verstappen has won 3 of the last 4 races at heading into Silverstone. He's on a bit of a heater. He's obviously got a lot going for him right now. Hamilton has won the last 4 Drivers' Championships and 6 of the last 7 Drivers' Championships. So on the micro, you have Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen battling. 2 guys who are 1 and 2 in the Drivers' Championship, and their teams are 1 and 2 in the Constructors' Championship. On a macro level, it's Verstappen needing to win this race because he wants to solidify his spot for the Drivers' Championship for the rest of the season, because he's been losing to Lewis Hamilton for the last 4+ years. So that's why, you can look at it at a micro level of who's involved, but also a macro level. I think it's also key to note in this incident. So what happened? So like I said, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen colliding, heading into Copse Corner, spinning Max and retiring him immediately. The 2 were battling back and forth throughout the entire race. Never leading up to Copse Corner was Lewis ever in front. They were either side by side or Max was in front. So a crash did happen. Lewis never was in the lead. They were side by side at some point, but when they crashed, Max was ahead of Lewis. Where did it happen? So this happened again. We call it Cops Corner, or it's turn 9 at Silverstone. It's the old start finish straight, which they changed after 2010. I believe 2010 was the last time they had that start finish straight, and then 2011 they moved it to where it is now. It's one of the fastest corners in the World Championship, and that's what Christian Horner said after the race. So try and give you an idea. I can't obviously, you can't obviously see the corner. You can Google it. You can go find it on the internet. But essentially, you're coming out of left field, and you're making this this right turn going down a straight. It's a fast straight, obviously. And Cobb's Corner is at the very top of the straight, and then it's a continual right-hander essentially. You go to straight, then you go into the right-hander, which is Cobb's Corner, which leads you into Maggots and Beckett's, which is the S's that they have in the second sector. So this is the second sector that we're talking about here. Comes out of left field, down the old start, finish straight, going straight into Maggots and Beckett's. So you're essentially on the throttle for the most part. If you do this corner right, you're on the throttle out of left field, down the straight, going right into Cobb's Corner, all the way down to Maggots and Beckett's where you go through the S's. That's where this incident took place. And when did it happen? Well, lap 1 of the British Grand Prix. Kind of on a micro level, that's when it happened, on the first lap, British Grand Prix. On a macro level, it happened in Hamilton's home race, which Mercedes brought upgrades for. And it was a race that Hamilton and Mercedes were desperate to win. That's when it happened, in a desperate measure for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. Why did it happen? Well, Lewis was desperate to pass him. Max did give him enough space to attempt to pass him. So again, you slow it down. You're going down the old start finish straight. Max moves over to the right to block him, which he does fairly well, but there's still there's still enough space for Lewis to go down on the right-hand side. And he's taking that space. That's what's given to him. It's not a lot, but he's taking it. Max then moves back over to the left-hand side. And keep in mind, this is all happening very quickly because these are Formula One vehicles that we're talking about here. And they're going 150, 160, 170 miles an hour going down this straight. So it's all happening really quickly. Verstappen moves back to his left because that's the right line you want to take when you're going into Cobb's Corner. You want to be on the left-hand side and you want to go right as you head into Maggots and Beckett's. So Verstappen's doing the right thing. He's trying to take the proper line. In a way, Hamilton's doing the right thing because he's taking the space that's given to him and he's running with it. He's going with it. And Max turns in. He is turning because he's anticipating going into Cobb's Corner. Turns in a bit too much and catches Lewis. It all happened really quickly. I don't know that Max was expecting Lewis to be right there because Max is trying to take the proper line. I don't know that Lewis is expecting Max to turn into him because I'm guessing he sees that Lewis is there. That's why this all happened so quickly and so fast, because they're both, in a way, doing the right thing. Hamilton is taking the space that's given to him. It's not the proper line. It's not the right line, but he's trying to make a pass going into Cobb's Corner. And he does it later on in the race too, with, I believe, Leclerc later on, and Norris. So Norris, he passes Norris earlier, yeah. So it wasn't on Cobb's Corner; it was on the old pit straight, but old start finish straight. But still, each driver in this incident is doing the right thing for the most part. In conclusion, I think it's a racing incident. I don't think Hamilton is to blame because he's doing the best he can with what he's been given, a limited amount of space. He could move over to the right a bit more, but again, that's not really the proper line. That's not the line that's going to set him up well for Maggots and Beckett. Verstappen is doing the right thing where he gave Hamilton enough space. He's trying to take the proper line, and he just cuts in a little bit too much. So after watching this video a bunch of times, slowing it down, it's a racing incident for myself. The racism that was directed online to Lewis Hamilton afterwards was not okay, and all the social media hate. And I think part of that is because people don't like Lewis Hamilton and they don't want him to succeed. There's obviously something to be said for, you know, Lewis supporting Black Lives Matter, which there's a percentage of the population who doesn't like that. They don't like that he, you know, a dominating world champion, arguably one of the greatest drivers of all time. People don't like that. Because you know, there are people who don't like guys who dominate in a sport like that, and there's just people, you know, who aren't going to like Lewis Hamilton and aren't going to like Mercedes and aren't going to like Total Wolff, and that's okay. The racism is not okay. You know, you cannot like somebody. That's fine. You don't have to like everybody that you talk to or that you see or that you interact with. That's okay. The racism is not okay. The online hate that Lewis Hamilton got on social media, that's not okay. So kudos to both Red Bull and Mercedes and Formula One for acknowledging that and talking about that after the race. And what I would say to all of this is get your popcorn or coffee or whatever you like to eat or drink during the race. Get that ready for August 1st at Hungary, because it's going to be fantastic seeing these two go toe-to-toe, back in action. It's a rivalry, folks. We got a driver's rivalry. Two guys who probably aren't the biggest fans of one another going for it. So I'm excited to see that. I'm going to be really, really watching that with anticipation. And I'm sure everybody watching this will be too. Other notes I want to mention from the British Grand Prix. So obviously the crash was the big story, but other notes I have. Sebastian Vettel lost control while battling with Fernando Alonso on lap four. A little bit too trigger happy. I think Brundle said on the broadcast. Tough luck for Vettel. He won in 2018, I believe, with Ferrari. I think that was the year 2018 or 19. He won at Silverstone, and I again, it's a real hit and miss with Aston Martin this year. So far, about halfway through the year, I think part of them wishes there was more that they could do, but I think at the same time they have a new driver, new car. There's still a lot they can work on. So it's like a C+, I think, for me with Aston Martin this season. And sometimes you're going to have these kind of events. Sometimes Vettel just gets a little too, you know, trigger happy on the throttle, and he just spins out, doesn't finish the race because his car had problems. I can't remember what the problems were off the top of the head. Slow pit stop for Lando Norris on lap 22. 6-second pit stop. His right rear was slow getting on. That's why he dropped out of the top three. It made life a little bit easier for Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton got the 10-second penalty, of course, with the Verstappen incident. So having a having a slow pit stop like Norris had helped Bottas and Hamilton immensely. On the flip side, 2.2 second pit stop for Bottas, a really slow pit stop that put him ahead of Norris, made his life easy. I thought that was a really good job by the Mercedes pit crew. Again, 10-second penalty for Hamilton. He had a 14.2 second pit stop. They could be a little bit, you know, they could be a little bit slower with Hamilton, making sure everything was right, just because of Norris slow stop and Bottas is his teammate. They could invert that, which they did later on. I thought that was just good work from Mercedes, just making sure everything's done properly and right, so that when you need to get back out there, it's all smooth. You don't have to worry about it. Hamilton passes Lando down the old start-finish straight, lap 31 for third place. Hamilton and Bottas switch positions on lap 40. They inverted. Kudos to Bottas. He talked about good teamwork, and that's what it was. I don't know how thrilled he is about it, but we'll see. He doesn't have a contract for next season. They've been talking about, replacing him with George Russell. I don't know if that's going to happen. I feel like if that was going to happen, they would have done it this weekend at Silverstone. I'm interested to see how that goes. Kimi Räikkönen tries to get past Perez on lap 47. He spun out and said it was a weird thing because he tried to go on the inside. I don't know what the name of the turn is, but it's essentially like the last right turn before you go down the main straight. I think that's Hamilton Straight now it's called. Raikkonen tries to pass on the inside of Paris, and he just runs out of room. He just doesn't have the space to do it. I thought it was a rookie mistake. I thought Raikkonen was smarter than that. Paris was just driving. He was just minding his business. I don't get that from Kimi Räikkönen. I guess you're trying to get ahead of Paris. You're trying to pass somebody. Yeah, weird spin near the end of the race. And then finally, Lewis Hamilton passes Charles Leclerc on lap 50, going into Copse after Leclerc goes wide. It's kind of the same thing. Leclerc gives Hamilton a bit more room. Leclerc trying to keep up with Hamilton. He goes wide. He understands the pressure that's at stake here. He goes a bit wide. Hamilton passes him. And Lewis Hamilton's in the lead. He wins the race. So kudos to Lewis Hamilton. Kudos to Charles Leclerc for winning the race. He doesn't have the same car that Red Bull or Mercedes does, but still managed to lead for about 45, 46 laps in the race. So well done to him. The best thing I like about that, and I want to talk about this as well, Martin Croft, which is the great call. It felt like a Murray Walker type call of Hamilton passing Charles Leclerc. The sound, the energy, the excitement in his voice very much sounded like a Murray Walker call. I was really glad. I'm going to probably listen to that again after I do this video. It was so good, so well done. Shout out Crofty. And finally, on this point, I just wanted to say I love the production and effort that goes into Sky Sports F1 broadcast each week. You notice it on the sprint qualifying on Saturday, which I'll talk about that a little bit. Drones and camera angles were just perfect. The graphics are awesome. The commentary team is great. It's a great watch every week. That's part of why I love F1. It's just how good the production is each week. So kudos to Sky Sports for doing that. Sprint qualifying, I fixed sprint qualifying. You make it 3 laps or 5 laps at max. It shouldn't be, depending on distance, it needs to be a 5-lap sprint qualifying at most. I know drivers probably aren't going to like that because it's going to get a bit close and a bit tight, and there could be some damage if drivers are really going hard. But if you want to do sprint qualifying has potential. I thought it was fine on Saturday. It was fine. It wasn't great. It got boring after about lap 10, but there's potential here. You can make something happen if you really want to. And that's why I'm saying make it a 3 or 5 lap sprint qualifying. It can't be any more. Otherwise, it kind of just defeats the purpose. So that's how I would fix sprint qualifying. I thought it was fine on Saturday. It wasn't great. It was fine. Next week, Hungary, back in Hungary. They raced there last year. They're going to be back there again this year. I'm really excited to see how this goes. Again, the big storyline with the Hungarian Grand Prix will be Lewis versus Max. I can't wait. I insist that those who are watching this video, go check it out. It should be a great weekend next weekend in Hungary. And that's all what I have for this week on the British Grand Prix. Thank you very much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure to like the video on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as well for more videos just like this. Thank you again for watching. We'll be back again soon. Peace out.